I just finished beating the main story for Watch Dogs Legion, so now it's time for me to give my final thoughts on this game. And oh boy, this is going to be quite the review. Watch Dogs Legion is the third game in the Watch Dogs franchise, and the first game to not include the underscore as part of its title. This time around, we're in London, England, and things are more serious than ever before. DedSec has competition with a rival hacker group, Zero Day. While both groups wreak havoc on London, it's up to DedSec to set the record straight and provide some homemade justice to others along the way. Ah, I see you've made it. There's a lot to talk about in this game, so I'm going to leave this story for last, as I will be going into spoilers, so for now, let's talk about gameplay. Watch Dogs Legion has its own unique approach that is different from previous games. Let's start with a gimmick that the game's trying to sell you on, which is that you can recruit anyone from off the street into your team. This is an evolution of what was available in the previous games, where back in 1 and 2, you can view a profile of anyone you walk by. Each one had a short bio with what their earnings are, and you can steal money from them at any given time. That last one is a cool idea, but it feels too easy to do. Moving on to Legion, everyone has a short profile as well, but you can also see what tools they bring if you decide to recruit them. Some may have a stealth or hacking bonus, while others are just mercenaries with automatic weapons and explosives. While this is a cool gimmick, it ends up being a burden to the game. You cannot buy or swap weapons. Any primary weapon a character has is theirs alone. This reason alone is why this is a problem. This may not seem like a problem at first, but then you run into a few missions where there's only one guy for the job. There are way too many missions in this game that requires violence and not stealth. Right, and... FBI, open up! Well then. Every mission can be done with stealth up to a certain point. But in a number of these, the moment you press the big red button to hack the system, guards immediately start coming after you. Lever.
12 seconds later.
Oh dear lord. I'm dead. What is this mission? Seriously, this is not the guy for this. On top of this, the guards already know exactly where you are, even if you never made any sort of eye contact with them.
You need to stay near the mainframe long enough so I can reactivate the lift to Mary's office.
Let's see if they know where I'm at. They know where I'm at. Now going back to this gimmick, one of my starting characters is a hacker, and all he has to defend himself with is a pistol. And suddenly, I'm surrounded by 20 enemies. So there's no sense in leaving any guards standing in some of these missions, as they'll just know where you are once you hack what you needed to hack. In any other game, including the previous Watch Dogs games, you can just equip a bigger gun and get the job done. Not here. You don't get that option, and you're stuck with whatever tools the character has. The only thing you can change is the one gadget slot, which unfortunately your spider drone takes up that slot if you want to use one. Also, you cannot swap out gadgets when you're in a restricted area. Do I have a spider bot in my gear? I don't. Let's go ahead and fix that. Team. Can modify. Oh my gosh, like what's the point? Literally, what's the point? It's just inconvenience after inconvenience. There will be characters that are utterly useless for a lot of these missions. This wouldn't be as bad of a problem if the game gave you a risk meter, in comparison to XCOM 2, where every mission has a ranked difficulty. This would be very helpful in Legion to simply tell us resistance is unavoidable, just something so we're not losing characters for no good reason. This game features a permadeath option, so it feels like a major oversight that the game doesn't warn me that I will lose my character if I send them into this kind of mission when they don't have the firepower to defend themselves. Legion does something that I feel should never happen in a Watch Dogs game. It makes you feel like a pawn on a chessboard. You have very limited abilities, and your characters will be under-equipped, unless you buy a deluxe pack with Aiden and Wrench from the previous games, or you go on a scavenger hunt to find an amazing character. There is also another fix to this problem, which is to have multiple characters with you during the mission. So, if things start to get hairy, you can swap out to a mercenary mid-fight and begin cleaning house. You know what? I don't have a drone. Alright, let's bring this guy off up into the shelf. It's gonna have to load in the character model, etc, etc.
Another brave soul for our ranks. Welcome aboard.
However, There's no chemistry here in regards to the character's ability and gameplay. Every mission should allow you to bring 2 or 3 characters in to help build out your teammate, more so if you have permadeath on. It's difficult for the sake of being difficult, and not so much for you making your own mistakes, and you cannot swap to different characters during a mission. I really do love this feature of recruiting just about anyone, but it comes with so many downsides that it seems worthless. One more thing to add here, there's a lot of shops to customize the look of each character, but I feel it doesn't make too much sense for me. It would be neat if I could set up a uniform so every character dresses up a certain way, but that's just not possible. Which means I'd have to grab a character, wait for them to load in, go to my wardrobe, and manually swap out whatever I want. It's just too much work to dress up a character you like, only to have them either be useless or die if you're running permadeath. Wait a minute. Of course, this is something that should be in the game, to please dress up with whatever character you want. I just didn't bother because I didn't know who I was going to play as the most. The wardrobe is universal, so it's not like you lose the clothing upon death, but I would have to go out of my way to do this. It's needed, but I just want to play the game if that makes sense. Moving on, they also made a change to how you can spot cameras and other things you can hack. In the previous games, you press a button and voila, hacker vision. Everything that's not important gets drowned out in a shade of blue, while everything you can interact with lights up. This made things easier to understand and figure out what options you actually have. It gave the game clarity. You weren't distracted by things that didn't matter at that point in time. You were able to focus primarily on what had to be done, and you wouldn't really get stuck trying to find a puzzle piece. In Legion, that's gone. All we have is a pulse that puts an icon over what you can interact with. Although this does keep the game in the regular world and makes it look more connected to its own reality, it has a side effect of making just about any puzzle in this game frustrating. In terms of the difficulty in the pipe-like puzzles, there's no difficulty spike in Legion in that regard. However, they do make things very inconvenient. Placing the moving pieces on a flat surface with no overhead view, meaning you would have to solve the part of this puzzle blind, or placing pieces on cylinder-shaped objects that require multiple points of view. The second issue isn't that bad as it is also in the previous games, and you also do get drones in this game to work with them, but it just adds to the frustration. Secondly, this hacker vision also helps with understanding what tools you had to infiltrate restricted and hostile areas. In Watch Dogs 2, you're given and shown different ways to take on a mission. You could just look around for a minute and jump right in. In Legion, it feels like you have to do your own homework. And even then, Legion has its own approach to its missions and combat that make you feel closed off. For a game that's set in a franchise that's all about taking missions in just about any style you wish, Legion doesn't really let you do that. I've said it a few times during my playthrough, but Watch Dogs Legion is the Hitman absolution of the Watch Dogs franchise. To clarify what I mean by that, in Hitman Blood Money, every level was a sandbox. You have the 1 or 2 ways the game intends for you to stealthily kill your targets, and then you have the plethora of tools and weapons you can bring in and find to have your own unique approach. In Hitman Absolution, you didn't really have that many choices. Again, you did have at least 2 options, usually, but the level design was a lot more points A to points B, and really limited what options were viable or even worth doing. The same thing applies here to Legion. There are multiple ways, usually into these buildings, but some of them were simply front door or back door, or you only had one way in, making stealth nearly impossible in these missions. It also didn't help that the game reuses some of these areas instead of a secondary location for certain factions you have to infiltrate, so you do get to relive some of that frustration. Watch Dogs as a franchise should be all about choice, stealth or guns out, lethal or non-lethal, hack or no hack. Legion just skips all of that, and some of those abilities being locked to certain characters. Which ones? I don't know. Whichever ones I can find. I played the majority of the missions as French because he was the most versatile. He had access to special gear that would require me to either swap to another character for, or find a nearby drone that would do the trick. I should talk about the drones. There are drones in this game, surveillance drones that normally don't bother you and are easy to take out. Then you have the stationary turrets, riot drones and combat drones, which are very annoying to deal with, and you can unlock skills to disable, hijack, or turn the drones to fighting for you. So they're not too bad if you decide to unlock those hacks, which I highly recommend you do. Because of these drones, car chases can last longer than usual, and they are a nuisance from beginning to end. I also should mention there are cargo drones, which you can use as a magic carpet ride to get to rooftop or windows or any other elevated location. It really is the best drone in the game in my opinion. If you do decide to hack any of these drones, the guards will get spooked and just begin to fire at it for no reason, even if you never took a shot. I know it can be difficult to make AI smart without simply seeing through walls, but the AI here is turned to 11. Not so much in the sense that they are smart, but that they are aggressive. So in conclusion of the gameplay, we have lethal drones, aggressive AI, and limited stealth options, with no on-screen messages letting us know which missions will be allowed and which ones can be done with absolute stealth. This means you may as well just recruit or use mercenaries, or anyone with a lot of firepower. Stealth simply is not an option. It's not that stealth needs to be an option in every mission. Some missions can be allowed, but it happens way too often in this game, and I did beat Splinter Cell Pandora tomorrow, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's finally move on to story. I'll start off with some general information, then we'll get into spoilers. I'll let you know when that happens. For the main story missions in the game, you're going up against the rival hacker group, Zero Day. We have very limited information and we don't know what their goals are at all. Afterwards, we have Bloody Mary, Sky Larson, an evil Max Payne, kind of, and the director of an agency called SIRS. Every villain is unique and has their own backstory, but not all of them are properly fleshed out. I can tell the goal was to make these characters wacky, almost like Far Cry villains, but less iconic and not as well put together. They don't necessarily have to be brilliant in every facet, but some of them do come off as, I'm bad just because. Whatever the backstory there may be for them, it's either summed up in one sentence or never properly explained. With that said, one of these villains is done really well in comparison. Of course, no review of Legion is complete without talking about Bagley.
I'm Bagley, DedSec's definitely not stolen, highly advanced AI assistant, and it seems I've been out of commission for a few months.
The best main character from this game is Bagley, an AI that manages DedSec and gives you the details of each mission. Bagley constantly insults the player or anyone involved. It's a trope, we've seen it before. And although it is welcomed by me, I know anyone can throw together a sarcastic AI and pull off the same effect. Isn't that right, Yo Gab?
That is correct, you smelly, incompetent fool.
With that, I'm going to start the spoiler talk here. Just note to keep your expectations low on these villains. So I'm going to leave the best for last. Let's start with Bloody Mary. Mary kidnaps people, injects them with a death chip, and sells them as slaves onto the black market. Why does she do this? I don't know. As far as I know, she just does this for the money, and who knows what else. There's no proper reasoning for her, just an angry old woman who doesn't mind enslaving people to live the life of luxury. My issue with this, and the game addresses this as well, is that she's just the supplier to the buyers. In short, you don't close down the black market, you simply shut down the primary supplier. I could be wrong about the whole part, but the game makes a statement that this will probably happen again. I do like how that storyline ended, and I would be upset if it did not end that way, but that's simply because there was no humanity in Bloody Mary. Moving onwards, we have evil Max Payne. I mean Nick Cage. Nigel Cass. Nigel has trust issues and wants to create a team of drones that automatically decides who to kill, essentially creating his own dream team of killer machines, to play as judge, jury, and executioner. I get that he's tired of beating around the bush, but there's obviously better ways to deal with crime or a potential crime. You already have drones flying around, just equip them with some tasers and a tranquilizer darts, with a speed dial to 911. Done. Anytime a drone detects a conflict, no lethal force would be necessary most of the time. Of course, that doesn't work in the real world, as tasers don't always work, and a tranquilizer can kill someone if they fall in a precarious way, or have some sort of health issue that could make things worse for them. But hey, it's a video game, it could work here. In any case, Nigel Cass is just an over-the-top villain, and we only get one line from him at the very end of his story that kind of tells what his backstory was, which is that he lost a friend.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
That's it. It's a very weak story in my opinion, but he does have more personality and humanity than Bloody Mary. Next up, Richard Malik. Malik is actually a good character. He has good motives for what he wants to accomplish and plays it well. His plot can only go so far, but I feel he was a sturdy character overall. The only downside is that he has a lot more bark than bite, but it still speaks to how bold he is to try and get others to accomplish his own tasks. Sky Larson is another baddie, kind of. But she by far has the best plot and is the most interesting character of the group. I think it also helps that she's not directly connected to the other characters. just trying to do her own thing, and well, we had to find a way to confront her. This does feel a little out of left field for a Watch Dogs game, but essentially, she's trying to find a way to upload her conscience to the internet, as in living internally virtually without a physical body. Which is entirely unethical and no one should be doing. Am I right about that, YoGap?
Should I erase the uplink protocol then?
We find out what she ended up doing to perfect this technology, and it's not pretty. She somehow has an entire house underneath her house, which was made to replicate her old home that she grew up in. Going into what tests she did, she was able to do this to her dog and put him in a spider drone. Then, after several failures, she uploads her own mother's conscience to her home network, which ended up working. But it gets worse, as not only did the mother not want to keep living, Sky also restricted her mother's emotions, turning her into an obedient AI. At the end of Sky's storyline, you get the option to keep her alive or shut it down, which will end up killing her. Keeping her alive allows her to finish her upload and live virtually on the interwebs. In my own reasoning, seeing what she had done to get here, there's nothing that would stop Sky from doing the same thing again and again and again. And if her company moved on and started using this technology, then Sky would in turn begin enslaving her own clients. That was my own conclusion, so I shut her down. Lastly, we have Zero Day. And listen, Zero Day by far was a massive disappointment. So I can't really talk about who the villain is with Zero Day without giving away the twist. But you've gotten this far, so let's talk about it. Zero Day is ran by one person, which was Sabine Brandt. Sabine is also the leader of your DedSec branch in London, so she betrayed everyone at DedSec in exchange for some technology. Her ultimate goal is to perform what she calls a hard reset, using all of the advancements of technology to attack everyone in the entire country, basically causing anarchy to try and have everyone start over again from day one. So, not only was Zero Day itself a disappointment, not actually being a rival hacker group, but the intention behind Sabine again feeling one-dimensional. To me, it fails to actually hit the mark of insanity that Far Cry villains have. I can't help but feel that was the goal for most of these characters. On top of that, there is not even a boss battle against Sabine or Malik for that matter. Technically not even Bloody Mary. There were challenges, don't get me wrong, but you never actually fought them directly, just their goons or security. Cass has a big boss fight and that worked really well. It just seems strange that you don't actually fight the big bads in this game. It's not uncommon for that to happen in Watch Dogs, but it just feels strange for all but one of them to have a true boss battle. In conclusion, Legion is a mess of ideas that struggles to hit the mark. The pacing and storytelling is fine, but the forced action gameplay and limited character abilities make it difficult to enjoy. To me, Watch Dogs should be done as a well-written TV show. We're not trying for awards here, but hear me out. If the storytelling was written more like Burn Notice, I think that would do a lot more good for a Watch Dogs story.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is... and I'm from the Department of...
Y'all can have this pig, we're out!
So you're not going anywhere.
What the hell do y'all want?
I want you all to surrender your weapons to Detective Garza.
After all, he just arrested you.
Further, man. Drop your weapons.
If you're not familiar with this show, Burn Notice is about a spy who gets double-crossed and ends up having all of his connections cut and bank account frozen. He has to slowly rebuild, taking odd jobs, and using his plethora of skills and quick thinking. I can't fully describe it, but just go ahead and watch an episode of the show if you're curious. Maybe you can get where I'm coming from. DedSec and Watch Dogs could take odd jobs and find ways to bring down crime and other shady businesses around the city, rather than it being the government or powerful people with a paid army. The tone they provided in Legion is to be taken seriously, with hints of comedy, but it just doesn't mesh all that well with me. More so when you hear Sabine congratulate you.
Seconds.
Good job, everybody. Now we just have to convince Malik to help us get our friend back. And thank you. I know this is getting scary, but you're all brave as I'm proud to call you my friends.
There's no energy there. You're just some person that lucked out and finished the mission. Compare that to how people freaked out in Watch Dogs 2 anytime you finished the mission there.
Marcus, come on back to the hackerspace. We need to commemorate Horatio.
Got him on.
I didn't get there quick enough, brother.
Teska's gonna come after any one of us, Jimmy. Me, you, Josh. Anybody's. They went after Horatio, and he refused to give us up.
And here's the big problem with the game. The tone of the game combined with the missions that are impossible to stealth force a narrative on you. The original Watch Dogs game was that morality idea, where you can take the extra time to go non-lethal from the get-go, instead of having to unlock non-lethal gear sometime later on, or luck out and find a character with great non-lethal gear. They put you in a corner and force you to go loud. At the end of the game, Sabine tries to guilt trip you saying, "How many people did you kill since the reset?" As if the game actually gave you any other way to deal with the situations. This is a problem Watch Dogs has had since the start. They tried to include it in the first Watch Dogs, but they didn't really deliver it. So now we're just here guilt tripping the player because reasons. I know Sabine ends up being a bad guy, which can explain her nonchalant attitude, but that just makes her one-dimensional. If she acted like she cared, there could be more to that can be explored. Does she have a split personality? Does she suffer from depression? Something that makes you want to resonate with her in one way or another. But no, nothing here. Just someone who wants to watch the world burn without giving a reason as to why. So those are my final thoughts for Watch Dogs Legion. I would give the gameplay a rating of 6 out of 10. Not every character can do any job, the characters can't really be geared up to take on any job, and you can't use more than one character for a job. It limits the power of the player and the impact that each person may have. The unique abilities each one has may make some stand out, but ultimately doesn't make most of them worthwhile if they can't equip the proper gear. I love the idea of recruiting anyone, but I really do hate the limitations they placed. For story, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Sky Larson's story shines above everyone else's, Nigel Cass's boss battle was simple but entertaining, and Malik was a good character as you could get for his kind of role, and the rest are one-dimensional. There's enough here to be interested, but not enough to carry the story from start to finish. Watch Dogs as a franchise has had a bumpy history, from the graphics downgrade in the first game, to a solid but not really celebrated sequel, to Legion. I don't have the time to think about what other possibilities there are to push this franchise forward myself, but I don't want Legion to be the last of the series. There aren't really any other games out there that focus so much on hacking and using the environment to solve puzzles, and attack missions in a number of different ways. Kind of like a civilian version of a Ghost Recon game. Some missions are going to be very easy if you find the right solution, or even ones that the developers didn't intend for. This happens all the time in the Hitman games, and I would welcome that kind of gameplay here. Keep the recruitment system, that still has its perks, just don't make every character good for one thing and useless in another. There's many things in life that don't get enough attention, projects that succeed or fail and be forgotten. At the end of the day, I appreciate the effort. I still had fun with this game, but it isn't great. So just know that effort isn't going unnoticed. I hope that my own projects someday, such as this channel, can also take off and find its own audience, even if it is only a 6 out of 10. I think I'm going to end this long rant here, but let me know what you guys think about the game and the series. Until then, I'm Mr. Rain, and I will see you next time. Also, let me know what you guys think about this. Is this too much or did you like it? Alright, see ya.